Hi, I'm Charity Singleton Craig, author of On Being a Writer, 12 Simple Habits for a Writing Life That Lasts. And over the next few days, I'm going to be interviewing authors I know who've read the book to find out a little bit more about their writing lives. This new series is called 5 Authors on Being a Writer. And today, I am welcoming to the show Michelle Derusha. She is the author of the memoir Spiritual Misfit, as well as the book 50 Women Every Christian Should Know. Welcome, Michelle.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So as I've done with past episodes and past guests, I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your experience with the book. The first question, hopefully, is simple enough. As I mentioned when I was introducing myself, the subtitle of our book is called 12 Habits for a Writing Life That Lasts. And I was wondering, at this stage in your writing life, you've written 2 books that have been published recently, and I believe from knowing you that you've been writing for quite a while. So what, at this point in your writing life, is the habit that you connected with the most?
Okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit because I picked 2, so I'll try to talk quickly about both of them. But the first one is Surround, and I don't remember exactly what chapter number that is, but it's earlier in the book. And I remember I don't remember if it's you or Anne who writes this, but you say something like, writing requires both inward and outward flow of ideas. And I think in recent months, because I released 2 books back to back, I just really had my nose to the grindstone. I was super focused. I was doing just a ton of promotion and marketing and all of that sometimes goes along with book publication. And I sort of have a habit of just being kind of a slave to my writing schedule. And I was not getting out and sort of living my life, and just feeding my creativity and my writing with other sources. I was just pretty much chained to my desk and hardly ever leaving the house at all. And I found out that that's a really good way to dry up your source of creativity. So you can only maintain that for so long, and then after a while, I was still trying to sort of push out blog posts, and I was realizing I have nothing to say, absolutely nothing, just had nothing left. The reservoir was completely dry. And it was because I was not feeding my creativity at all with, other human interaction or other art or just being out, in nature or any of the things that I typically go to as a source of inspiration. I had pretty much obliterated from my life, and it just wasn't, it was not a fruitful experience in the end. So that's just a short little period, maybe a few hours in a day where I am not chained to my desk, and I go out and I take a walk or a jog or, walk the dog or something like that, or a longer period. And just recently, sort of after I discovered that my tank was dry, I was having a conversation with my agent, and I said to her, I hate my writing life right now, which, red flag. If you say you hate your writing life, like, there is something the matter. And she said, I think you need to take a break from blogging, from social media, from, all of the promotional stuff as much as you can, step away from that. And so I did for like 6 weeks, which in the 5 years that I have been blogging several times a week and writing regularly, I have never taken a break that long. I think at most I've ever only taken about a week. So 6 weeks was right around the holidays. It was like from Thanksgiving through the New Year. And it was so replenishing. I just cannot emphasize that enough. I thought I was ready to almost quit writing altogether. And I came back just with a renewed zest for it and a renewed spirit. And it was really important for me to do that.
That's excellent. I love those two, especially the rest. I think that's something as writers that we often get caught up in being productive, 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 and we forget that the only way that we're going to really be able to sustain a writing life for the long haul is to occasionally step away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
So so out of these 12 habits, what we knew from the beginning, but what we're definitely experiencing is that there are elements of the writing life that aren't really part of these 12 habits that we've included in the book. But they're for other people and even for us as the writers of the book. There are bound to be other things that are included in the writing life. So as you think about your writing life, you could think about now or at some in the past, what is something that wasn't included in the book that you think is really important?
Okay, so that's a really good question. And I know I got the questions in advance, so I had a little while to think about them, which is a good thing because I might not have been able to come up with anything. But I was thinking yesterday just about the practice of trusting the process. And so that's a word that I just kept coming back to when I was thinking about your question, and the issue of trust and trusting the process. So, you sit down a lot of times at your writing desk, and I know I do. This happens to me with some degree of frequency. I sit down and I feel like, oh my gosh, I have nothing. I have nothing to write. I have nothing to say. The reservoir is dry. But I think what I forget is that if I sit down to do the work and trust that something is going to usually come out of that process, usually it works. Okay, so I may start writing and it may be, trash initially, but most often there'll be a nugget of something in there. It may be buried 5 paragraphs in or 3 pages in, but there's usually something there. Something is going to come of the effort that you put into the writing, and you just sit down at your desk and be prepared to do the work and trust that something is going to come of it, something good. Usually, there are always instances where you really do have nothing, and then it's time to go, take a rest or surround yourself with something creative, to refuel yourself. But if you write and you practice that craft and the art of writing, you will get better, you will improve, you will grow as a writer. And so I think a lot of us just need to sort of come back to that and trust that that is true.
That is great. And in fact, that last little thing that you said, you may want to pick that as your answer to this third question. What one practical tip would you give to a writer who is wondering what the next step is for her writing life? What you said was beautiful, but if you want to add something, that would be great.
Well, I was going to say to simply take the next step, which I think sort of goes along with what I was saying earlier about trusting. But I think a lot of times we have this big to-do list sitting next to our desk. At least I do, because I'm kind of triple type A person. So I have my to-do list, and I have these goals in mind and these things that I want to achieve or accomplish. And maybe it's submit a new piece of writing to a new print magazine or an online journal or something. I just have these goals, and I kind of get overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, it's just overwhelming. What am I going to do next? I feel almost like paralyzed, and that I'm stagnating because I don't know where to turn next. And I think sometimes it's just as simple as just doing the one next small thing, tiny step. Start the piece that you want to pitch to the Huffington Post. Just start it. Just write the first paragraph, right? And it's just something about taking that one tiny step it's just, for me, such a relief in that sometimes. You don't have to bite off the whole enchilada. You can just take that one initial small step. That's what I would offer. Yeah.
Great. Okay, and speaking of the one next step, what is the next step for you as a writer?
Okay, that's a good question. I am not totally sure. So I'm sort of walking through a period of uncertainty and discernment right now, and I don't know for sure what my next project might be. And I will admit straight up that that is not my favorite place to be as a writer. But again, it is part of the process, I think, for every writer to be in these in-between stages where we're not quite sure, what's going to be the next project or the next step. And so I'm sort of trying to live by my own mantra here, and just every day just trying to take one small step towards what might be the next big thing on my list. So yeah, I'm not really sure.
Okay, all right. I totally get that. Well, thank you so much for your answers. Thank you for reading the book. Thank you for dialoguing with me about the book, and I'm so glad that you could join me.
I love this book. I read it twice. I have to say that. I read it twice through because I'm kind of a speed reader, and then I thought, man, I need to slow down and really absorb this, because there's so much in this book for every writer, no matter what stage in the process you are, beginning, intermediate, a little farther along. There's so much in there. So thank you, and Anne, for writing this book. It's such a great resource.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining me, and thank you for watching. Have a good day.